Hello, everybody. Thank you once again for joining my channel. Let me just say that Chess Audiobooks is on leechess.com, chess.com, Instagram, Twitter. So you can follow me there, play me some games there, and become my friend there. If you would be so kind, I would love that. All right, we are looking at the Fide World Cup quarterfinals. Right, so as you can see, it started out with many players, but now we are coming down to a handful of players in the game that we're going to look at today. It's between former French number one Etienne Bacrot with the white pieces versus our world champion Magnus Carlsen with the black pieces. Once again, this tournament is taking place in Sochi, Russia, as you can see on the map there. Beautiful city. So let's get right into it. This, to me, is definitely a candidate for game of the year. This is one of the best games I've seen in a long time. So the game started out as E4. From Bacrot. Uncompromising player. E5, knight of 3, knight C6, bishop B5. Are we going into a Berlin defense? No, we're going into that classical Morphy defense to the Roy Lopez A6, bishop A4, knight F6, castles, bishop E7, rook E1. So a little old school Ruy Lopez here, B5, bishop B3, castle here, and now Bacrot, just like Kasparov in days of old, avoids the martial attack by playing this move A4. Now, we know this is an anti-martial. A lot of players, especially newer players, might not know why would it be considered an anti-martial. First of all, let me just show you really quick what the martial looks like. So, if white, played the move C3, which is normal with the intention of playing D4, the martial attack will begin after D5. Right, it's a pawn sacrifice. E takes D4, knight takes D5, knight takes E5, knight takes, rook takes C6, protecting the knight. D4, knight D6, rook E1, rook E2 is also possible. Queen H4, G3, Queen H3, and this is like this classical position in the martial attack. So the price that black pays for giving up a pawn, right? He pays the small price of giving up a pawn, but he gets tremendous piece activity and an attack on the king side. And practice has shown that in this attack, black usually gets enough compensation for the pawn, and many lines have been analyzed out to draws. But I want you to keep this position in mind and remember that this is an anti-martial. Okay, so look at this position. Just etch it in your mind here. This is the martial. Now we're going to go back. Okay, A4. So you might say, well, why is A4? How does A4 stop the martial? Right? Because bishop B7 is the line. So let me just show you that. So if black is stubborn and says, hey, I'm going to play a martial anyway, right? He doesn't play bishop B7. He plays D5. The problem is that this rook is unprotected on A8, and play would go, for instance, after D5. Just bishop takes D5, knight takes, E takes, and let's just say queen takes, knight C3, and then A takes B5, and you can see that the A pawn can't capture. The rook is unprotected. All right, so it just doesn't, you don't have any activity, so you just down material, weaken position, etc., etc. Other moves have been tried, of course, but anti-martials, it stops the martial attack proper that you will be trying to get. And so this move, bishop B7, is the proper move here. Or B4 is played too. But the point is that black is not able to get this massive piece attack on the white king as he desires. So the game continued. Bishop B7. And this is all theory, of course. Knight A5. I'm sorry, D6, bishop D2, queen D7, knight C3, Knight a5, attacking the bishop. Bishop to a2, c5, knight e2. And white is playing in more positional sense. Roy Lopez, right? He's not allowing black to get this wild attack. Rook a d8. And now, I'm sorry, after d5, e takes d5. And slow down a bit. Knight takes d5. And now c3. So you can see Magnus gambits a pawn anyway. Rook a d8. A takes b5. A takes b5. And now knight takes e5. So you can see here that white goes up a pawn. Knight takes e5. Rook takes e5. And bishop d6. So what you can see that makes the game interesting to me, that caught my eye, is that Magnus is getting a position similar to the Marshall attack, but it's anti-Marshall. So he winds up gambiting the pawn anyway, like a Marshall attack. And notice the position of his bishops. He has an aggressive bishops placed aggressively on both diagonals, right? And he has access to the white king side. The only thing is that white hasn't weakened his king side by playing g3 as in the Marshall proper, but still Magnus is able to get a similar position, which to me is very intriguing. Rook e1, knight f4, again attack on the g2 pawn. So you can see again that that attack, right? White is trying to avoid this type of scenario, but Magnus is able to create it anyway. Bishop takes f4, right? Exchange some pieces off. Bishop takes f4, and now Bacrot just plays knight e4. So some of you are saying, hey, what about queen takes d3? All right, because Magnus played queen c7, attacking the h pawn. See, provoking, right? He's down a pawn, so he has to pursue the initiative. So Magnus played queen c7. If queen d3, that would be a blunder. After queen takes d3, rook takes d3, and then just knight takes c5. All right, getting another pawn and forking the bishop and the rook. So queen c7, and now Bacrot is faced with the choice here. Do you play g3 or do you play h3 to defend? Bacrot chose g3. Again, you can see the similarities between the Marshall attack proper, right, and then in this position. Now g3 has the benefit of, right, actually gaining time, right? G3 hits the bishop has to move. Okay, the downside is that it does weaken the long diagonal, as you can all see. The other alternative is h3. Doesn't gain any time. All right, it just like basically takes care of the immediate threat to the h pawn without gaining any time. So this means black can do what he wants to do. And what black is going to do here on h3 is just play the move c4. Okay, undermining this knight right here and shutting off this bishop on a2. And this is a very important theme in the Spanish. Okay, that bishop is supposed to be the Spanish bishop, right? The good bishop, the torturous bishop, and look at it. All right. And so play could continue, like d4, but again, white has to take time to reposition that bishop. So Bacrot chose g3, where he could gain some time, but at the cost of weakening his position. So bishop e5, and now Bacrot takes a big chance here. He goes f4, right? So he's an aggressive player, and he's playing for the initiative. He's trying not to be passive, but he does weaken his king side. Other move that was suggested, queen h5, for example. Okay, queen h5, and then maybe Magnus plays g6. All right, queen e2 is another idea. Okay, f4 was played. Bishop d6. And now he does queen h5 here. And now Magnus plays queen c6. Very natural move. Just getting on the diagonal here. C4 again is a move that is very important here. And the idea is again cutting off that bishop on a2 and undermining the knight on e4. So for instance, the game could go, sorry. So after bishop f1, c takes d3, for example, rook a d1, bishop e7, and queen e5, queen d7, knight f2, bishop f6. All right, and black has a good game, queen c5. All right, this is good for black. To c4. The other alternative after c4 is just to capture. D takes. This is also bad for white. g6, rook d1, rook e1, bishop b2, king goes over. I'm just giving you some lines. The engine, bishop d5 will be played here eventually. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong. Have so much analysis on this, I'm looking at the wrong line. So bishop c2 here, and then finally the knight is captured here, and this is of course winning for black. So c4 was definitely the viable candidate here. So queen c6 was played, and now Bacrot plays queen h3. Reason why this move is an error is because, given the line I just gave you with c4, white is the one that should be playing c4 here. Okay, white is the one that should be playing c4. Although it seems counterintuitive to put another pawn on the light squares. So for example, c4, b4, and then you can see now the bishop can get out. Bishop b3, bishop e7, and then the bishop works itself back into the game. Rook a d1. These are all sample lines. Bishop b5, and you can see the bishop has somewhat redeemed himself, and the game is kind of equal here. Another idea, instead of queen a3, another idea is f5. Black plays his trump again, and then f6. And the game is pretty much equal here for both sides. So either f5 or c4 were good moves for Bacrot. Instead, he plays the move queen h3, and now Carlsen finds a move, c4, d4, and now you can see the difference in the variations with white playing c4. White is able to get his bishop to b2 and then eventually to a4. I'm sorry, to b3 and to a4. Here, the only way out for the white bishop is to go to b1 now. And of course, right, black has a time, so he plays rook de8. The other idea here is f5, just driving the rook away. Driving the knight away, which is counterintuitive, of course. And then this move, and of course, it makes it very difficult for white to redeem this bishop, because bishop b1, then the rook on a1 drops. And then you could just give up the exchange there, and this is winning for black also. Anyway, rook de8 was played, and then d5. Fantastic move by Bacrot here, and then Carlsen played queen d5. I remember during the game, I was hoping that he played queen b6. I just felt it was safer, but I'm not even sure about that at this point. Idea is not to allow the rook to go to d1 with tempo against the queen. So, for instance, queen b6, king f1, bishop d5. And now here, white has this fantastic idea: knight f6, g takes check, king h8, and then queen f5, hitting the bishop and the f6 square. Bishop a3, allowing the queen. And again, this is like from the engine. So, I mean, this game is very complicated. Bishop a3 with the idea of protecting the f6 pawn with the queen. Rook takes. Bishop drops. Bishop takes b2. Rook e1. I'm sorry, I said rook e1, king g7. Bishop b1. Bishop finally gets back into the game. And this position is, I would say black is a little better, but he has more material. And, his king is probably a little safer. I'm not even sure about that. But that's a crazy position. All right. So, I don't blame Magnus for just playing queen takes d5. But it allows Bacrot to bring the rook in the game with tempi. So, rook a d1. And now Magnus decides he's sacrificing. Rook takes e4. Gives up the queen. Rook d5. Rook takes e1 check. King f2. Man, rook f e8 and rook e5. Incredible. It's like an only move. Rook e5. So here, Magnus plays bishop takes e5. The stronger move here, and I can't blame him for playing bishop takes, but the stronger move is rook 1 takes e5. So then after f takes e5, bishop c5, king f1, bishop e4 with this idea of bishop d3 check, queen h5, bishop d3, king g2, g6, queen g5, and now h6, trying to deflect the queen from the protection of the e5 pawn, which would allow the rook to come in the game, to come down the e file. Rook e6, g4, and now rook a6, hitting that problem bishop again. e6, f takes e6, and again, that's all engine. I would have never came up with these moves, but here black is in the driver's seat in this complicated position. But Magnus played bishop takes e5, and this gave Bacrot a chance here to get back in the game. And he plays the bold king takes e1. So he's right in the discovered attack territory. Magnus plays bishop takes c3, double check, king f1, and now bishop c8. And queen g2 from Bacrot. The engines have it where Bacrot has to play g4, and with some kind of equality. But again, it's hard to say it's equal because it's so many factors here. Like time factor. How easy it is to play for each side. So equality, yes, maybe between two top engines, but practically, no way. But g4, it blocks the threat of the bishop on c8 and attacks the bishop on c3. That's the idea there, right? And so bishop would have to come back to f6. Bishop b1, threatening mate. Can't have that. g6, queen f3, bishop d7, g5, bishop takes b2, and you can see that it's definitely a position that's kind of unclear. Yes, I would favor black here, but to say that black is just gonna win from here easily, it's too many factors here. Yes, black has the two bishops, the rook, the two passed pawns, but it's tough. It's gonna be a tough game, and I have a long line of analysis that I'm not gonna go into, but it's tough. Queen G2 was played. Natural move. After all, bishop is still attacked. So now we have bishop f5 played, leaving the bishop on prise on c3. Now queen d5. Now here, bishop takes c3. Bishop takes c3 here would be a mistake. Okay, bishop takes c3 was not played for because of the move bishop d3, and then that's going to result in the loss of the queen. So for example, bishop d3, king f2, rook e2. Again, if bishop d3, if the king goes here to g1, then rook e1, the king comes up here, and then rook e2 again. So that's why the bishop wasn't taken. So again, going back, the bishop f5, queen d5 was played, attacking the bishop. So now you have the bishop attacked on f5 and the bishop on c3 attacked. So bishop e6 and queen c5 here, and now bishop takes b2 and king g2. A lot of tactics in this game. Problem here for white is, even though he has the queen and bishop, the bishop on a2 is still out of the game. So it's really like 3 pieces versus the queen. Another thing is the king is exposed. So, and there's the bishop here on the board. So moves like queen takes b5, for instance, right? It looks good. Bishop d7 was played first, sorry. So king g2. Let me go back. So for instance, right here, moves like queen takes b5 look good, but they just lose automatically, because after all, queen is attacking the rook. e8, that looks good. Attacking the bishop. All right. Threatening to pick up the pawn here. That looks great, but since the king is exposed, it can't be realized. None of those dreams can be realized for white. After bishop h2, d4, king f3, rook e3, and you're just losing like everything. You're gonna drop the queen right after the discovered check. So after the king comes down to, let me just play it. The king comes down to f2, then you just just can resign. So so this is why after bishop e6, queen c5, bishop takes b2. This is why the king just moved. So it's not like he overlooked queen takes b5. So bishop d7 was played, and now queen d5. Queen c7 is definitely better. The reason why is first of all, it's a legitimate threat. So Magnus has to react. So he would have to play a move like bishop g4. Problem with queen d5 is that after rook d8, he's threatening. Magnus is threatening. Let me use some graphics here. Look at that. Magnus is threatening just simple move like bishop h3 check, winning the queen. Bacrot realizes the error of his ways, and he moves the queen, but he moves him to like a bad square. Again, the engine likes g4 there, right? Because it avoids the check. He did queen c5 again, natural move. Carlsen just moved the bishop to f6, and what this does now is you can see both of these pawns are protected, right? You see both of these pawns are protected, and So now Bacrot has to worry about the idea of these pawns advancing. And another thing that's great for black is his king is protected. So bishop b1. I mean, after all of this time, the bishop being shut out, it's hard to blame Bacrot for playing bishop b1. All right. Although the computer likes queen b6. So what? Bishop b1, right? g6. Now during the game, I understand g6, right? You got to make room for the king and all that stuff like that. Fine, but I definitely like this move, opening up the rook, penetration down to d2. But g4, bishop takes g4. At this point, I thought Bacrot was starting to get tired, because I mean, to me, this move is like way too ambitious. Right, the king is already like hyper exposed, and to play g4, right? Bishop takes g4, queen takes b5. Okay, so he gets one of the pawns, but c3. Then he plays this move f5, g5. Magnus didn't have to play that, right? He could have just played rook d2 there, but he's just keeping the position closed. He's shutting off all counter play. Basically, he's taking away the hope from Bacrot, right? There's no hope, and when you lose hope, that makes you want to resign. When there's no hope, there's no chances for like swindling and stuff like that. Would that work against an engine? Of course not. But when you take hope from a human, they just want to give up. And g5 takes away the hope. You close the position. Bishop's been bad the whole game on on a2 and b1, right? That's supposed to be the Spanish torture bishop. And look how it ends. It ends blocked, right, with no scope, and loses hope. And this is why after g5, Bacrot resigned. So, man, what can I say about that game? Just I guess what impressed me about that game so much is that Magnus Carlsen created a martial attack from an anti-martial. Of course, theoretically, is it an anti-martial? Yes. Or the is it going to go down in notation as an anti-martial? Of course it is. But when you look at the position and you see that Carlsen gambited the pawn, right, and created similar type position. Bishop on b7, bishop on d6, right? White even had the weak pawn on d3, right? Rook coming down. Bishop being out of play on a2. That is classic martial stuff right there. And then to culminate the game with the queen sack, because he didn't have to sack his queen. He could have went into the other line, the safer line, queen b6, and went in the complication there. But he sacrificed his queen. It's like he playing for the crowd almost, And then you have to give Bacrot credit, because Bacrot is finding like these only moves, in some of these situations. Just finding ways to keep the game going. He was really he did not, you could tell he did not want to lose that game. Now he was trying hard, to stay on that same level with Magnus Carlsen, the concentration and going blow for blow. And in the end, Magnus Carlsen showed why he is the greatest player of all time. I'm gonna go ahead and say that he's the greatest player of all time. I don't want to hear nothing about Fischer. I don't want to hear about Kasparov. Magnus Carlsen, the greatest of all time. Did he stand on the shoulders of those players? Yes. And of course, Fischer stood on, shoulders of Morphy, all this stuff like that. Kasparov stood on the shoulders of his predecessors, etc., etc. But I'm saying right now, Magnus, greatest player of all time right now. So anyway, don't want to open up a can of worms with that, right? All the people getting mad, like, oh no, Fisher, Morphe, going into roid rage, no, Bobby Fischer, Kasparov, they're gonna tell me how many tournaments Kasparov won. He had the title for 15 years, all this stuff like that. Carlsen, Magnus Carlsen, man, he showed the chances, man. This guy take this belief in self, like that was all on display here. So anyway, that is the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. Please hit the thumbs up button. That promotes my videos in the YouTube algorithm so that they will be seen. I have about 700 videos on my channel, and they're very good. The content is good. I'll pat myself on the back. The content is good. All right. A lot of different subjects. I mean, I cover like everything in chess, but I need a thumbs up. That's gonna help promote my videos to the algorithm, because I believe that the content is good. That if enough people see it, they'll be like, wow, this is some good stuff. I stand by the content. So again, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe. But if you don't subscribe, at least hit the thumbs up. And check the links below. I have a donation link. Please help my channel out, even if you send a quarter. Donation link that will help tremendously. Also check below on the other links, the DVDs, books. I always try to put DVDs or books related to whatever opening was on board. So today we had Spanish, right? So I'll have some DVDs / books related to that opening below. And again, remember, I'm on live chess.com. So hit me up if you want to play a minute game. If you want to catch some of these hands. You want to catch some of this smoke on minute speed chess games. I don't really play the longer games because I've ran a lot of cheaters on chess.com. I don't feel like dealing with that and have my mood swings, have my moods switched up because some dudes playing a perfect engine. I don't want to play a 3300 engine, on chess.com, in a 20-minute game because some dude think it's funny. So I stick with the minute games and just have fun, try some different things, and make some friends along the way. So with that said, let me know what you think about this game. Jump in those comments below, and that's pretty much it. Let me know if you're from Sochi, Russia. If you've been to that city, it looks like a beautiful city, as you can see from the little picture I have on the top. Let me know if you've been there, what it's like out there. I think it looks like it's on the coast of the Black Sea there. And that's Georgia too. That's not the United States, Georgia. That's for the Americans out there. A lot of Americans, are not strong in geography. They'll be like, oh, that's Georgia. That's down south USA. No, that's Georgia. That's the country next to Armenia. All right. Anyway, like I said, I will see you guys soon on the next video. And I hope you enjoyed this one.